more Cassiopeia. On the left, she was manager there for a while too.
Okay.
Did it matter where we sat? We weren't sure.
Yeah,
we didn't see
nope.
seat assignments or anything, so we figured, well, we'll just sit.
I claimed this one, but for no particular reason.
Okay.
Just because I saw it.
All right, what's the agenda here, gentlemen?
Yes, exactly.
Well-
Tell me about podcast. I know nothing.
Yeah,
I know
I really
what
don't
it is, but I never done one, so I
Well,
have no idea.
It's
We have
like
to spell.
oh
I
god, I
hope
hope
there's no
not.
arithmetic.
Me too.
Oh, I'd be screwed. I draw.
We'll ask the teacher.
I draw cartoons. I don't do math. I was literally thinking this morning about. I remember when I was in 6th grade telling my teacher that I didn't want to do my math because I'm not going to be a mathematician. I'm going to be a cartoonist. It's like, ugh, God, shut up, kid. Ugh. What a little. Yeah. So, yeah, what's a podcast? Well, it's like radio on the internet. I think that's a good
Radio on the internet. Okay.
basically.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That they let us be on.
Yeah,
They
well,
let- oh.
because no one can stop us.
Okay. And it's all
true.
verbal. There's no visual because
Yeah,
I worked really hard today to look my best.
No one can. We'll have to get a group photo afterwards.
Well,
Wow, this is pretty special. We haven't been here
Very
together
special.
like this in years.
people have called me that for a long time. Very special. He's very special.
You are, Gary.
How long do you
are-
think it's been since the three of you have been in the same room?
Oh, it's been
Oh, good question.
a long time.
It's been a long-
A decade,
well,
maybe?
Yeah, Ben Paddle.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That
We
wasn't
were
that
there
long ago. That was a few years ago.
years ago.
Okay.
We were at Ben Paddle. The
Yes,
three
we
of us.
were.
Hmm.
I like that a few years sometimes can be like 5 or 10.
It can.
know.
A few gives you a much wider
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
there's
range
COVID
of possibilities.
and
People ask me, well, how long has it been since you have jitters? And I'd say like, oh, maybe 6 years. And I did the math on it today, and it's like 9 years.
Oh my god.
So it's been almost a decade, yeah. I remember coming in town. I was so bereft finding out that it was. I don't even remember the name of that place. Anyways, I probably shouldn't mention it. Anyways, but it wasn't Jitters anymore. That's how I discovered that you weren't there. Because I could always just stop in and think, oh, I'll just stop in. And I had my two priorities. I'll stop into Jitters and Jason's and yeah.
How long ago was this that you just
I
thought
don't-
you were
it
going to stop
was-
in and see
mean,
me?
Yeah, it was probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't remember.
Well, it has
That's
to
how
be
I
more
discovered.
than that. That you stopped in and I
Yeah.
wasn't there.
Yeah, that it was.
Because that would have still been during the reign of, I forget her name, Katrina. It was the owner of the building's daughter and her husband, Logan,
Yeah, that had some kind
took
of
over the coffee shop,
yeah
the bakehouse.
the bakehouse.
The bakehouse.
Yes.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And now
we
it's
won't-
Dream Cloud.
Now it's Dream
Oh,
Cloud.
Dream Cloud. Yeah, what's Dream Cloud?
It's a really great coffee house, and I was going to
Oh,
try
it
to
is a
get
coffee
Charlie
house.
to come because this whole podcast was kind of about jitters and the start of my coffee life
Right.
and our wacky friendship and crazy travels.
It's
and
like Jason's
fun
prequel.
stories.
Yeah. And he was amazed to find out, my God, there is life after jitters.
That's right. There is life after Jitters.
Wow.
I know.
You're living proof of it, Gary.
Yeah.
So but what about life before Jitters? Because I feel like wanting to
That's a good question.
open a coffee shop.
Oh.
I mean, a few people want
Yeah.
to. I mean, I guess you Jason wanted to. My partner Molly wants to at some point. So
Okay.
it's not like uncommon, obviously. But
No.
So, but what led you to wanting to do that in the first place?
Ooh, long story here. Prior to moving to Duluth, I lived in Ely and then Virginia. I managed a Sherwin-Williams store in Virginia, and I met online what I thought was going to be my future husband. So I was trying to get a transfer from the Sherwin-Williams store in Virginia to Duluth, but there's only like maybe 6 people in each store, so it's hard to get a transfer as a manager. So then, wasn't his name. I'm sorry, didn't mean to say his name.
Look at it. It's all right.
Delete. He said, when I couldn't get a transfer, then I tried to get some other jobs that were relevant to my occupation at that time. Nothing was working out. He said, why don't you start your own business? So we brainstormed, and that's how the concept of Jitters came about. Because at that time, there was very little downtown for
there was
coffee
nothing
shops.
other than Kelly's.
Well,
that I
there was
recall.
Kelly's, and then where Browsers was, that was a little.
Doesn't really
The refinery, the refinery, and the urban
Oh,
ground.
the urban ground, but the
Oh,
urban
urban ground, yeah,
even
yeah,
the
yeah.
urban ground like went up in smoke, and then that weird Browsers with crazy. Well, yes. Anyways,
Yeah, that's.
I just remember when he started coming in Jitters, and I was like, "Wow, this guy is really." Wow, yeah, that was a very interesting time. But other than that, I mean, it was essentially just Kelly's Coffee.
Yeah, it was.
And,
Yeah,
for
and they were
people
kind
that-
of well, they did a lot of selling of beans and
That's true. Yeah.
gifty things and stuff like
Yeah.
that. They didn't really even have. I don't
No.
think it was to go. I think it was to go.
There
coffee
were,
only.
to be fair, there were a few tables.
Were there
off of the sidewalk or off of the Skyway? You could take a left there, just past where the store was, and there was a little nook there you could sit down. And
I randomly ended up with some of their old equipment at an estate
Oh, you
sale.
did?
Really?
I
Oh.
didn't know where it came from, and
yeah.
I bought this old Deeding grinder and a little espresso machine backup, and
Yeah.
there on the side is all Kelly's
Oh, wow.
stickers. I'm like, this is from
Wow.
Kelly's Coffee. Obviously,
Wow.
it's
Yeah,
been
I
sitting somewhere for a long time.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I actually really enjoyed Kelly's. Yeah, and then I
Yeah, I can't remember their names.
no.
I called her the
old-
ice lady because she wasn't very friendly. She was not friendly at all.
Yeah.
And her husband was quite meek but very nice.
He was a really nice guy.
But
I talked to him a few times, but she was like, trying to get Joan Baez to smile, in the 60s. It wasn't functioning. She's gotten a lot smiler in her old age, but not things were a lot more serious under Nixon than they were. I don't blame her.
Because I remember going up there when I was deconstructing the future location of Jitters, and I didn't want to tell them who I was, what I was doing, because I figured they might poison my latte. And so I just kind of kept it on the QT, until it was already up and running. And but getting back to my story, so I moved to Duluth. It would have been Memorial Weekend, 1997. And prior to that time, my very well connected person in this town, we started scoping out locations. I wanted to be in Canal Park. That was my first place that I wanted to be for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And what's there now? The convenience store and the DQ,
Oh, right.
the gas station. There was a photograph
Oh, yeah.
photography
Yeah, there was.
business there at that time. And
Yeah.
I thought that would have been perfect,
Yeah.
but it wasn't for rent. So anyways, started looking downtown, looked at several locations downtown. My ex knew the owner of the building that Jitters was in at that time and was able to actually secure a pretty sweet lease. So did the lease, worked on it from when I first moved down, May of 97. It opened up, I think his opening date was September 22nd. That year,
sounds right.
1997.
Yeah, so we opened it, we started there, and I was
Yep.
back by September, so yeah, it must
Yep.
have been.
Were you coming back from Alaska?
Yeah, I was. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. When I got back from yeah.
Where haven't you been?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where haven't you been?
exactly.
No, I've been. There's a lot of places I haven't been. I've never been to Mexico.
What?
Oh,
Whoa.
And all the places I've been, I've never been to Mexico.
What were you just telling me upstairs about getting some records out of Mexico or something like that? About
That's for my teaching certificate in New
Oh.
Mexico. But
oh,
yeah.
New Mexico. I
Yeah.
thought.
Oh, I had the same confusion earlier when Jason and I were talking.
Oh,
I started talking
yeah.
about regular Mexico, and he said, no, New Mexico.
Yeah, not old Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow,
Yeah, no, I've never been to Mexico.
it's great.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
parts of it,
Exactly.
during the
love-
daylight, it's safer.
Just depends on where you go.
It does.
It all depends.
It does. It
Yeah.
totally does.
But yeah, I just got back from Alaska, and I remember that, and I was looking for work, and I saw that coffee shop. Someone had mentioned that there's a new place that had opened. I remember, so I thought
I was waiting for the day it opened. Every day I'd go by. I
Oh,
was like working at Finger
Paper's still
Hut
up,
and
the paper's still
yeah,
up.
Finger Hut. I
Finger
remember
Hut
working-
and working at Magic Carpet Mart up the street
Oh,
across
you're
from
kidding.
Chum.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
my
3
God.
years.
I
Yeah,
didn't
you
know
were working
that.
at Magic Carpet. That's how I first met him, because he'd come in with Ann for coffee after they had worked, or after you.
She worked at Ace Hardware.
and she worked at Ace Hardware.
Oh,
She-
downtown.
Yep.
Yeah.
So every day I'd
I was
just
gonna
like
say-
walk by. It's like, when are they gonna open? That was like every day. I'm sure I was there the first day you opened.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Probably.
I wouldn't be
And then I'm
surprised.
like, who can I kill to get a job here?
The owner. I'll buy the place then.
Oh man, good times there.
Yeah, a lot of memories, a lot of good times.
Oh yeah.
A lot of hard times, passing of Jeremy. You remember Jeremy?
Oh, what? Jeremy? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Was that must have been after I left?
It was.
99?
I can't remember.
2000?
You weren't there either, but do you remember?
I know about it.
Yeah, okay.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't even. I guess I never even knew he passed.
Yep. Had a wedding there.
Oh, you did.
Tracy and Shane Robertson got married at Jitters. We had a baby.
Oh, yeah.
Had a baby shower there. We had a celebration of life there.
Ah.
So it was more.
Wow.
It wasn't just a coffee shop.
Well, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it was a great.
Tracy
little
pops
community.
in here once in a while.
Does she?
She works out in West Duluth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we had some good regulars there. It's definitely.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes,
it was
we
a
did.
nice.
Jake Peters, one of my best friends. He
Jake?
used to sit with Paula. They all sat at the bar. They always came in there almost every day in the morning. I'm trying to think how to get you to remember who they are. But,
Yeah, right. I
yeah.
never remember names that well.
yeah,
especially from-
faces you would.
Yeah,
I'm
faces I would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just long before social media. If only we had. You know?
Yes.
If
Yes.
only.
Well, going back to the outfits,
Yeah.
Julie left, and I finally got a job there.
Yes, you did.
And I got her shirts. I don't
Yes,
know
you
why
did.
we were the same size. So I got the fuchsia tuck shirt
Yeah.
with the paisley
fuchsia.
bow tie
Yep.
Yeah.
and the black vest.
Yeah.
And then
And black slacks.
and black slacks, which I had to go get some. And then I was curious, how did we end up on the cover of Women's Magazine?
I'm sure they just approached. I'll be honest. I don't really remember. I would just assume because they were and maybe still are located downtown, their publishing office or something.
Oh, yeah.
The
Okay.
women's magazine in Duluth.
I don't know. It could be.
I'm sure they just approached me. I mean, I don't know. Beyond that, I haven't a clue.
It's like a bunch of baristas.
Why do you want to know that?
I always think about that. I want to find a copy of that.
I'll look.
All of our paisley bow ties on the cover of Women's Magazine. Yeah.
I've got a plastic bin in the basement full of Jitters memorabilia,
Wow.
and if it's anywhere, it's in there, and I know exactly where that bin is.
All right.
But there's
that's,
some of the original coffee mugs with the
Whoa.
classy looking ones with the
glass
stem.
ones?
The glass
Yeah,
ones
look-
with the stencil, like it looked like
Yes.
frosted, but like etched.
Oh, I'd love
you know,
one
on
of
'em.
those. I'll have to buy one.
I've only got one. I've only got one of those.
Only one left.
And
So I
that's
hope
in
you got
that
some money.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
you know,
collector's edition.
check eBay. You know, it'll.
Yeah.
So when you moved back from Alaska, that's when you were fishing up there.
Yes, it was, and it took me months to get that smell off me.
I
le-
know,
I
but
left a
then you
lot of
ended
it
up
at Jason's
living in
house.
my place.
I left a lot of it at Jason's.
No, were you fishing commercially?
Yeah,
Oh.
I was at a purse seiner. Yeah, in Kodiak Island.
For salmon?
Somebody, yeah.
Okay.
Somebody just convinced me. It's I was one of those young men that was really driven by the gold rush complex, I call it. Hey, I can make $20,000 in 3 months, and take a year or two off.
Smell like smoked fish for four.
I'll smell like smoked fish for 4 of that. Of course, turns out that was not the case.
What was the reality of this?
Yeah, the reality was you get up there, and that was '97, and already all of the canneries and then the tender boats, the boats that actually take the boat share and then distributes that to a cannery, so they come and take all your stuff off there. They were being bought up by the Japanese at the time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then which for whatever reason had driven down the price of sockeye salmon. So when I got there for the sockeye run and then got on this boat, because I just had to walk the docks. I had no experience, but they're like, if you go to Kodiak Island, you'll get hired within a couple of hours. And I was. I had a great job with this really nice guy, Bob from Ashland, Oregon. He had a big 50-foot purse seiner, the net and the boom in the back. It was just a four-person crew out of Dog Harbor, and so we got the boat all ready. Chipped it. Cleaned the hull, all that stuff. Right, mended the nets if we needed to. Got all that stuff ready, and then I don't know. That was like a two weeks or so, and then we were ready to go because on the day that Fish and Game, does the signal for fishermen to go out. Once they do that, it's like off the races. It's like a starting gun. Everyone leaves the harbor at the same time, and it's just a bunch of crazy people who, are essentially pirates that are, licensed by the state of Alaska. Yeah, I mean, some of these guys are just, you're always warned, don't get on a boat with a screamer. If he's a screamer, he's probably going to be worse out at sea.
Screamer.
Screamer, a person who just screams when they're angry.
Oh, it's what it sounds like. Okay.
That
not
seemed
where I
rather
went with
common
that.
sense. I wasn't the type of person that, well, gee, if he seems like a decent guy, he's a screamer, I think I'll join this crew.
He's screaming some sense.
Yeah, that's right. But this Bob was a great guy. He loved the Grateful Dead. He'd always play the tunes when we were working on the boat. Just a really neat guy. And then once it got to start day, it was like the night before everyone's ready. There's all this tension in the harbor. I mean, Dog Bay outside of like Dutch Harbor is the biggest commercial fishing venue in the whole state, right? And that's saying something. So it's second biggest to Dutch Harbor. Dutch Harbor's got like a commercial fleet of like 4,000 or something. And a lot of that's crabbing, though, to be fair. But Kodiak used to be a big crabbing center, too. But by the time we got there, crabs are all fished out. So it was all sockeye. And then the night before, everyone's all excited to get going. And then we get news like, the purse seiners union's going on strike because the Japanese are only offering $1.25 a pound on sockeye salmon. So all of a sudden there's all this tension in the harbor. Then there's like gunfire going off, and we're sleeping at night, and some guy was drunk and rammed our boat, and they had to call the harbor master, and they're chasing this guy around the harbor trying to catch him. It's like, Jesus.
This is exciting.
It was nuts. So finally they did let us go, and I remember that. But by that point, all the whatever the migrations of fish weren't in the spots they were. So we had to go way the hell around the island to a place called Bumble Bay, which is if you're on Kodiak, you're on like the east side of the island, way out in the middle of, the Pacific, and you have to take the boat and go out to Bumble Bay on the other side, which is basically getting on the edge of the Bering, not quite the Bering Sea, but it's close. It's off the Gulf, getting into the Aleutian Islands. It was like a 15-hour boat ride to get out there. So, and I mean big water, right? Because the Shelikof Straits is just like that little strip between Kodiak Island and the peninsula, and there's nothing out there. So it's just big 15-foot rollers, for how many hours.
So is that the area that I see every once in a while on TV where it's a show called Something's Deadliest Catch?
Yeah, Deadliest Catch. Yeah, Deadliest Catch is way further out on Dutch. That's on
Okay.
Dutch. Yeah, so Dutch is where all that madness occurs. And I was warned then. I'm like, they're like, I could go to Dutch or whatever. They're like, well, it's a lot more expensive to get out there, and there's really crazy people out there. So there was more meth and coke than there out in Dutch than there was in
No way.
Kodiak, and there's plenty in Kodiak. So I can't imagine what it's like out there. Because that's what they do. Those guys work 20-hour days.
What do you get?
So a lot of those guys are just and of course it's light all the time. Yeah.
So, question.
Yeah.
If you were to go back and do it all over again, would you?
Oh, would I do commercial fishing? I had an opportunity to I got my Z card through the Coast Guard to go on the big boats out here, but that didn't, I don't know why. I was getting impatient, and then, someone convinced me to go up there. So if I could do it again, I'd love to just try working on the boats,
Okay.
just on the big oar boats here. That was something I'd always wanted to do. Yeah.
Probably a lot safer here on the oar boat than it would have been on.
Maybe, that's true, yeah.
Unless
Yeah,
you're on the Edmonds Fitzgerald.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, good point. Oh, no.
She likes to eat boats.
Yeah.
She seems to think that
yeah.
it's
Yes,
good.
she
Yeah,
does.
right,
Yes, she
right.
does. For sure.
No, it was great. I wouldn't trade that for anything. All the hopeless alcoholics and manic depressants I met up there, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Was it worse than, was it Island to Gamble, or what was that?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't Campbell, that's for sure. But it inspired me to come back, because then I knew I'd had the hook put in me, and I'm like, I want to go back, but I want to work in forestry or something. That's why I got into firefighting, because I'm like, hey, if I could work up there, that'd be a great job. That was a great job.
Where'd you work in forest fire?
Well, I worked originally in the sewer district up in the Kenai Peninsula. They have one little fire engine, and at the time, before global warming was an official idea, people didn't realize how bad it was. There was just one fire engine in the whole state of Alaska in the Forest Service, and that was in the Chugach Forest. So we ran this little engine out there. It was just it looked like a green tow truck. They wouldn't even let us put emergency lights on it. They couldn't even, no, you had to put these old, like the tow trucks have those yellow flashing lights. That's all we could get. The state wouldn't allow us to put. So one time we had our lights on going to this fire, and no one was pulling over. And I remember I run into this guy later in Crown Point, this little community that lived by us. I'm like, how come you guys never pulled over in that bus? He's like, well, I just thought you guys were a tow truck. I'm like,
Yeah.
it was a fire truck. He's like, you guys got a fire truck? They have a fire truck up here? Oh, yeah, occasionally.
So only amber lights, no red lights.
Yeah, it
Yes.
was only.
Oh,
I don't know
no.
if that's shit. But now it's like with all the federal money they pour into firefighting because of everything that's happening.
Everything's burning.
Yeah. But that was my first lesson in climate change too, because my other job as a, just working for the Forest Service, not being a Type 1 firefighter, but just like working on the district was all we did was when we weren't fighting fires was just cutting down dead standing trees because the Sitka spruce were infested with spruce bark beetle larvae because the average mean temperatures were rising in the springtime. Greenup was happening quicker and the larvae could gestate earlier as well.
Sure.
So now it's like all these people built their little dream houses like up on the Sterling Highway in Homer and up in Seward. They built them up in these like box canyons, which they tell you never to do in urban wildland fire because you're essentially putting your house in a nice chimney. You have like you put it way up in a box canyon with steep walls on either side. That fire comes in, it just acts like a chimney flue, right? And your house goes right up with it. And access and egress, forget it, because you can get an engine in there, but then you got to back it out when there's a fire. It's like, that's a disaster.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we set off a blaze in 2001 on the district, and the fire management officer, whose job is to like try to predict the weather, figured, well, okay, we're in a drought season, but we're supposed to have this big low front coming with rain, which is typical in June after greenup, and it never came. And we already went and started this blaze, like a 10,000 acre blaze, a controlled burn. You try to control and it just we totally got out of our control. It was an uncontrolled blaze. Yeah. Yeah, it started spotting over us. You'd set up like a hose line because we were sitting on this big lake, and then you run the fire line up the draw between these two ridges as kind of your boundary, but the fire just would spot over that, and then it just took off behind us. So we just had to leave all these hose lays and tools and just beat feet out of there. And the next couple of days, it was like a 20,000 acre blaze. They shut down the Seward Highway. No one could get up to Anchorage from Seward because it was all cut off. And that was all dead standing Sitka spruce. Because
So between firefighting and fishing, when was Jitters now? I'm getting lost here.
Yeah.
That's my
timeline
question
here.
too.
Jitters is
'cause
nice. Yeah.
I can't imagine the person you just described going, I just want to make espresso for a little bit.
Yeah.
And massage therapy for a little bit.
Yeah, it's true. I did
Oh,
that for a
forgot
little
about
bit,
that.
and then I just that bite. Alaska kept calling back. I just wanted to go back, and yeah.
You're traveling the world, and me and Gary went to San Francisco to the first coffee
Yes,
convention.
we did. I forgot about that. That was
yeah.
that was fun.
That was a
interesting.
blast.
That
I've never
was.
been to San Francisco, and
Yeah, for sure.
What year was that?
What
must
Was
have
that been like 99?
98,
Yeah, 98, 99.
maybe
Yeah,
99.
maybe 99.
I mean, it would have been before. Yeah, you
I think
started
it was
yours.
98, probably.
Yeah.
I don't recall.
I vaguely
I remember
remember
doing it, but I don't remember what year.
I
It
didn't
had
know
be
where
in
to
that-
stay in San Francisco, and apparently I stayed right on an interesting corner. Yeah, it was like Chinatown this way, Red Light District this way, North Beach this way, and actually I wouldn't change it. That was a happening little corner.
Yeah, I was saying
Yes, it
you really
was.
get the culture.
I had a blast. We had a
It was fun.
good time.
It was fun. Yeah,
I
totally
remember
spaced
going to the
that out.
Stinking Rose.
Yes, you're right.
How long did you guys actually spend there for the convention?
I was gonna say-
5 days.
Yeah, I would say
So you got around a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
too.
we did. Yeah, you had free time to
Good times.
explore,
Yeah.
and we did.
And then what do you do at a coffee festival?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
Or
it was
convention.
mostly vendors
Yeah.
that like equipment and coffees.
I was really
like
excited because I
roasters.
was planning on opening this place.
Yes,
And so I was like syrups, like Monin syrups is what we use here, but
yeah.
they had like 30 kinds of syrup. So it's like I'd try like 28
there's a world
terrible
outside of Da
vanilla
Vinci?
syrups and two. You had the 1983.
1883.
And that was pretty good. And I like the Monin a little better, so we still have that. And then
I was more
we were
of a
looking
Da
at
Vinci
machines,
guy.
Chimbly, Nuovo Simonelli, Rancilio, so it's like I was looking at grinders, like,
Yeah. Yeah, we had European roastery coffee when I first opened for quite a few years.
Oh, I drank a lot of espresso, Lavazza, Ely,
Yep.
Crossroads,
Yep.
all these, Allegro. In the 90s, coffee was so different. I think it was all very all dark French roast.
French roast.
Gary's
was
a
king.
French roast guy.
Yes.
He's a 10 cup French roast kind of guy back then.
Oh, it was more than that. It's like a dozen cups a
To be
day.
fair,
You know.
you were the first person, Jitters, to bring in a commercial venue iced coffee to Duluth.
I
Not
remember
iced
that.
coffee, what,
Cold press.
Cold
right?
press.
Yeah, but that
Yes.
was so.
But
that
first
was a
cold press was
huge
at
thing,
Jitters.
man.
It was,
Yeah.
and you bought the toddy.
Yeah.
That
The toddy.
espresso.
I was
the
so-
super concentrated.
I was just like, wow, this is like the second invention of fire. Or
Do you
something.
guys remember that when the first day you made it, I came to work and you go, like, gotta try this new cold press. And
I was
I
very
missed the
excited.
memo where it's the same strength as espresso,
Yeah.
and I just poured a whole glass of it, like a whole pint.
Yeah, you
of,
drank like a whole pint.
And I
of
was
cold-
like, drank the whole thing, and you're just like, oh no, it's concentrated. I was like,
Peel Jason off the ceiling.
yeah, last thing Jason needs is a. Oh man, yeah, that
Oh,
was
wow.
amazing. That was
cold. That was
Great.
the first cold press.
yeah. It was the first cold press.
That
in
was.
Duluth.
How'd you find that?
I was thinking about when you brought that up. I was trying to remember. It had, to be honest, I think it was an employee, but I don't remember whom had mentioned cold press espresso, but I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
If it Eli, maybe.
Maybe
Could have
Eli.
been.
Could have
Yeah,
been
I could
Eli.
see
Could have
that,
been. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing though. No one else had it.
No,
No one
nobody
else had it. No.
That was it. And so when
No.
people come in and order it, they were like, "Wow, this is amazing."
They had iced coffee.
We'd
Iced
always
coffee.
warn them. It's like, you don't need a lot. This stuff is concentrated. if you,
It packs a
if you only
wallop.
knew how many pounds of coffee it takes to make,
You see that guy vibrate in the corner?
Yeah.
Too much.
You take a whole pound of
Oh.
espresso and
Yes.
grind it, and you soak it for 24 hours, and then you have to let it slowly filter through this really
Fiber. It was a
fiber puck thing, and it would
puck,
take
yeah.
forever, and it would pour this little decanter out of a
Oh
whole.
my
You
gosh.
you put a whole pound of coffee and get like a little carafe
Yeah.
of this super concentrated,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
super caffeinated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Just,
so good.
just going through the process of making it shows you how powerful that stuff
I was
is, man.
totally ripped up that day. I think you guys did it on purpose too. It's
Might
like,
have. That could have been.
let's see if he'll drink a whole
You
glass.
made it so easy.
right.
But the beauty of cold press, one of the selling points, other than fabulous flavor, was low acidity, because
that's
the
right. It was
cold
so
does
smooth.
not, the cold water does not extract the acid from the ground beans.
Mm-hmm.
It's very acid free.
Yeah,
So that
it's-
was
it's-
another.
yeah,
It was
it's-
like gold. We
so
called it
smooth.
liquid gold. I called it liquid gold. I don't know anyone else did, but
Oh yeah.
know.
Yeah, now you just take it for granted. You go to any coffee shop,
And
there's an
they've got it.
expectation you have it. But I
Yep.
mean, man, back then
Mhm.
nobody had it.
Mhm.
So another great memory of Jitters, and bringing that back to Browsers, the juice
yeah.
bar. So Gary would always do these little radishes and cut them like little roses, but no one ever ate them.
Oh, that,
No.
that
So
bugged
me and
to
Corryn
no
would
end.
eat like
Yeah.
20 radishes a day because
Oh, yeah.
we just like scavengers. We just like
20,
eat
yeah.
leftover sandwiches.
Oh, it was great.
We'd have like 9 leftover sandwiches and we'd bring them home. And
Oh,
I got so
yeah.
sick of like soggy leftover
Soggy
sandwiches, but
seafood
we would still
wraps.
do it because it was free. But one
Free
day
is good.
we saved up like a whole bucket of radishes that no one ate, and we went to the Browsers down the street and asked them if they'd juice them for us.
No way. I don't
Remember that?
Right.
And then we had to mix it with
Yes.
carrot juice.
Yeah,
so we had
we
carrot
mixed it with-
radish juice, and we got
Oh.
each got like a whole glass of
It's
so
fantastic.
spicy.
It was very, and it was,
It was like
very
horseradish.
Yeah, it was like basically drinking
Spicy.
a glass of juiced horseradish, like drinking liquid
And,
wasabi
wait, and
sauce.
it wasn't delicious? Oh,
It was. We
really
drank it.
good.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Like, wow.
But I also now think about food safety, and now I'm like, wow, we took a radish off everyone's plate and brought it to another restaurant and had them juice it.
I didn't remember
Well, it's
that you
stuff you
saved
can't
the
do post-COVID.
plates.
It seems like you two kind of just like stumbled into coffee, honestly.
Yes.
But you, Jason, were kind of seeking it out.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
how soon into working at Jitters were you thinking about opening your own shop,
Before.
or was it even before? And like, was this just kind of part of that?
Yeah, like before, like when I did the interview with Gary, which I was bombing on all my other coffee interviews terribly, because I was honest to him, like, I want to open a coffee house. And they're
Yeah.
like, no,
No, sorry.
keep moving. I applied at Alicap. They're like, you're going to open a coffee house. We'll sell you coffee. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And Gary, I'm like, I want to open a coffee house. Like, okay.
Well, he assured me, and that was the deal breaker for me as far as hiring him. He assured me that when he did open a coffee shop, that it would not be anywhere in direct competition with Jitters. And over the years, I mean, I've talked to several entrepreneurs that were opening up coffee shops in the Duluth area, and Jason was my first. And I was always happy to share my story, as to how Jitters came about, what works, what doesn't work. If you're not going to open up 2 blocks away from me, fine. I'm not worried. It's a big market, so. And coffee is kind of a niche market. I mean, it's not like people are going to drive 5 miles out of the way just to go to Jitters. No, they're not, but if it's on their way to work, they'll be there. Yeah.
Well, but you went above and beyond too, though. Well, one, you hired me knowing I'm going to do a coffee house someday. But 2, when I was doing my projections for my business plan, it's like, how many cups of coffee are you going to sell a day? How many sandwiches? It's like, and I'm like, I don't even know. And Gary's like, well, just look at these numbers. This till printout says how many we did in a day. And I'd be like, really? So it's like, oh, okay. So today, so then I had this idea. It's like, okay, if it's this busy of a day, we did this much. Oh, okay. And so it made my projections like real. Instead of, because when you're making a business plan, you've never done it,
Right.
You have no idea. And so, for Gary to let me like understand that knowledge was super helpful.
And unlike Jason, he did more of his homework before opening up at that time Beaners. Me, I was literally flying by the seat of my pants. I mean, I didn't know other than a passion for coffee for myself, I knew nothing about a coffee shop. Yeah, and even my vendors where I bought my espresso machine and coffee makers and all that kind of stuff. I can't remember his name. They were from the Twin Cities. He came up and he was up there, the guy that did all the selling to me. He was
Probably
there.
Espresso Services.
It was Espresso Services. Thank you.
Because they sell Chimbley.
Yes. Yeah. He was up there for the first, I think, 2 days. I think he was there 2 days just to get the place up and running or give me some moral support, So I didn't know anything about the business, but it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
It was a great place, and it was a joy to work in, and had a great community of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really
The camaraderie in that place. I mean, that was my social life. I had with all the hours that I worked, I didn't have time to do anything else. You just worked, ate, and slept, and literally that's all you did. But so all the individuals, all the customers and employees too, they became my best friends.
Oh.
Literally. I mean, that's
You made it a
to
great
this
place.
day. Most of my closest friends are people from that era. So
And I still see a bunch of the regulars that come in here now.
Yeah.
Just it's
yeah,
really
like
interesting.
Michelle. Michelle was upstairs.
Michelle was upstairs,
Yeah.
right? And I always know when someone's from Jitters days. Because you made me a name tag and it said Jay, J-A-Y.
Yeah.
And no one
So
had
the
ever called me Jay my whole life.
It was always
It was always Jason. So there's this 2-year period where if you call me Jay,
And I still,
it's back from
and that's still a
Jitters.
slip of tongue. I'll still call him Jay because I think
I don't care.
Yeah, I know. But it's just funny.
I don't remember. I don't even know what I call you. I have a lot of names for you, but
I love though that you
most
made
of them
a
are
name
nice.
tag though. It's like I got my name tag.
I don't know how I
love that.
The
same
sun
thing with
got cut off or something.
Oh yeah, did you spell Corryn's name wrong?
Well,
Corryn?
I think yours is.
Yeah, I think you spelled it right, actually.
But it was Corey. I mean, that's what I.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
you probably
instead
went
of
with,
Corryn.
Yeah,
Yeah, we got
Now anyone-
abbreviated.
yeah. I got mine. Well, to be fair, that's what I went by back then because I always got so much shit for my actual name when I was a kid. I just changed it to Corey, and then when people said Corryn was cool, I went back to that.
That explains it. I often wondered about that.
When Corryn was cool.
Yeah, when Coryn was cool.
Back when I got into my 30s. All right, I'll just go with that name then.
Oh my God.
Was the end of it just retirement or?
Yes and no. That's so. At the time that I really didn't want to get out of the business quite that soon, but there were some factors in the equation that made the choice for me very clear. And first and foremost was the projected start of the 3-year reconstruction of Superior Street. And knowing that block was going to be closed for a good amount of time and there was no other access other than on Superior Street, that could easily be a death sentence for a small business like that. So when that I knew was going to happen, I started looking for a buyer. Mm-hmm. And one thing led to another, and then I sold it to the owner of the building. And Superior Street construction got postponed like 1 or 2 years. I think it was 2 seasons that it got postponed. Had I known, I would have probably hung in there a little bit longer, but I was having trouble negotiating a new lease. And I just thought, this is an opportunity time to walk away.
Yeah, smart.
So
Yeah, I was sad though when I came there and it wasn't there anymore because I could always come home in summer and find Jitters there.
Yeah. Did you shed a couple tears? Yeah. Did you really? Oh, I wish I'd been there. I could have given you a hug.
I know. I really needed one then, Gary. Since gotten over it. Seeing Gary in his shorts gardening at your house was enough to heal the wound.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, it was just coincidental that
that was good.
we happened to be outside.
I actually never had seen your house. I'd always heard about where you guys lived, but I never.
You never came to one of my parties.
I don't think so. And you guys have been there for years, right?
I've been there now for 24 years,
that's what I
something
thought.
like
Yeah,
that.
I knew
24 years. Yeah.
Since I was at Jitters. Wow.
Because that's one of the things I did on an annual basis. I would throw my favorite, and still is, I haven't done this for several years now, but is a Halloween party. And it was basically for Jitters patrons. And it was kind of a gratuity thing just for their patronage, but that was always the best fit for a party was Halloween.
Oh,
because all the other major holidays, we're busy, we're going to be out of town, blah, blah, blah,
good
blah.
point,
Everybody
sure.
stays in town for Halloween.
Yeah,
So.
right. So
But you never made it to one of those.
I don't recall
you were
ever
probably...
I never did either.
No, because I was
You
never
were invited,
I would
though.
never have
I
been
know.
around.
Corryn was not. I mean, he was out of the picture.
I
You
would
were out of the
always
country,
be out. Right, I'd
Yeah.
only be around in the summer.
Nicaragua, or
Let's
wherever.
have a quick list of where you went. I was trying to think of it.
Oh, yeah.
So you were in Alaska. You came back. You became a massage therapist and slept at my house for a while because you were tired of sleeping in the biffy. And
True story. I only made it a night though, just for the record, on a biffy on Park Point. And just so you know, they make the toilet slanted, so it's hard for people to sleep on there.
and then you were a massage therapist, barista for a little bit, then a firefighter.
Yeah.
And then you went to the Arctic Circle or gamble.
Yeah. Then we went to China for a year, Carrie and I.
And then you came back and lived with me again.
Yes.
And then Corryn's wife, Carrie, we traded rent for helping film the the number 2 1 week live with Trampled by Turtles and so it was her and your friend Dan Fitzpatrick, Fitty, and Carrie and 2 camera angles, and they filmed the whole 1 week live.
And that was when Trampled by Turtles kind of debuted. Was that?
Yep, they were on. Yep, Trampled by Turtles
That's
and
way back. That's
Haley
like
Bonner.
That's 2002, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, it would
maybe
been
2003, right around there. Yep.
Yeah,
it was. And then we.
Oh no, 2003. Yeah, that's
Yep,
when we came back.
yep.
So that's when they it was a debut of theirs, not the debut. But.
So you lived in our basement for some months. And
and then she went off to Seattle, and then I went. Yeah, that's when I went up to Canada just to volunteer for Frontiers Foundation. We worked in it was an old boarding school that was then like a middle elementary school. It was in a native community in Inuvik way up in like latitude 66 or. I don't know.
way up there.
Yeah.
Where you
Way
when you
up
mountain
north.
bike to work, your gears freeze up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can't even. I remember that. That's the coldest I've ever been. Was cross country skiing at night in like November in Inuvik, and I remember they had one little. It was a one stoplight town. I mean, there was probably like 1,000 people that lived there, and I remember going by the bank that had the digital readout, and it was minus 55.
Actual air temperature.
Air temperature, yeah, not with the wind. And I remember coming back home and the naga hide of my ski boots, it just spider webbed. It just like cracked. It was like, to me, everything after minus 30 is all relativity. It kind of feels the same as long as you're, moving. But it's like, yeah.
So then you left the Arctic, and then where'd you go?
Yeah, then I went to Seattle. Then I went back to school, and I got my education certificate, and then we went up north to go to Alaska to teach up there for a few years.
And then how'd you get? Then you were in. So after China, Arctic, and then you were in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, then we came back here. Yeah, and I worked for a year. I just subbed in the school district here, and then we went overseas. Yeah, then we went to Kazakhstan for 2 years, and then Saudi Arabia, and then Nicaragua, and then Philippines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Philippines.
Yeah.
Where were you the longest? Nicaragua?
No, the Philippines. We
Oh, what's
just finished
Philippines?
5
You got
years
stuck there in COVID.
Yeah, we got
Oh,
stuck there. Yeah.
okay.
I always tell people I stayed 3 years too long. I'd meant to leave after 2 years.
Whoops.
No, that was great.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have our baby girl today if it wasn't for there. So
Oh, so there you go.
I
It
know.
all worked out.
yeah, yeah.
Something
so-
good comes out of everything.
Oh yeah,
you
it
know?
did. No, and the Philippines, to be fair, is beautiful. It's you just living in the urban areas is tough because the infrastructure is abysmal and there's just tons of corruption and yeah, it's really that's difficult. But once you get out into the islands, it's stunning. Yeah.
Even with a drunken boat captain.
Oh God, yeah. I know. Oh my God, I know. Oh, the National Marine Ferry and the pilot's up in the pilot with all his buddies and they've got rum on the counter of the pilot house and they're getting drunk on the boat. It's not like wasted drunk. And then the guy comes outside and of course it's just me and my wife, the only white people in the boat. And he's like, "Hey, you guys want a couple of shots?" I'm like, "No, if you could just drive us there safely, that would be great."
That'd be
We're in the
appreciated.
middle of the Pacific Ocean. If you could just get us there. And no, they didn't. We got there 2 hours late. So the guy that was supposed to pick us up and bring us to where we were staying took off because they got sick of waiting for us because these guys were late.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
This is why I didn't want to go to Papua New Guinea.
that's right. Yeah, I tried to talk him into that. Well, yeah, that would have been even a really bad idea. That would have. I know we could go to Papua New Guinea and then not afford to get out of Port Moresby and be stuck there in like the most dangerous city in the world.
It's standing out like an ultra sore thumb.
Yeah. Yep. Here, kidnap me. Ransom material right here.
So after going up north, you in the cold, you seem to have gravitated towards warmer temperatures, and so I'm just curious, what's
Yeah.
the hottest then you've had to deal with?
Oh, Saudi Arabia. Well, it was 53 Celsius, so Fahrenheit is like 130 or something.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Well, what about Area 51?
that was hot.
Area 51.
Very hot in Area 51. Well, to be fair, that was in Rachel. I was on that one road that's not on the map, the access road to Area 51. But was I technically in Area 51? No, I wasn't technically. The sheriff of Lincoln County would tell you. They get so mad because you got these, the private security goon squad that works for the Air Force that guards this stuff, and they pulled me over because it wasn't hard to pull me over. My car's already stuck. I went out into this like gravel wash and then stole a sign that said "Military Installation, Don't Enter," and I had that like all buried in my car. And the goon squad comes up, and they got assault rifles in their car, and they're asking me why I'm here and can they search the car. I'm like, "Oh, can't search the car," So they're like, "Well, we're gonna have to call the sheriff of Lincoln County." That's what they always do. They just put it off. And that guy, I mean, he was something right out of Central Casting, from the Dukes of Hazzard. This guy, he was pissed. I mean, he was like really pissed. Granted, it was like 2 a.m, Monday or something. But oh man, he told me if I ever came back, he'd be like, "Yep, we're gonna throw you in jail." I don't know, whatever. But now it's no fun anymore because Obama came out and they're just like, "Yeah, Area 51 exists." So no, there's no more taboo. That was back in the good old days.
Where'd the sign go?
Yeah, it's at Fidine Amy's. You
I
want
was,
to see
I
it?
was going to say, it
Come
was
up
at my
there
house for a
sometime.
bit.
Yeah, they have it in Aiden's bedroom. So he comes in and it's got this huge rusty
Oh my
metal
God.
sign
Wow.
that says, "Warning, military installation." $5,000 fine. But of course, adjusted for price of inflation,
Well,
it's probably
yeah.
more like 10,000 now. That was 20 years ago. 5,000 would get you a lot.
Yeah, sure. Oh, wow. You've led a fascinating life so far.
Yeah,
Got so much more to go. Got to bring my kid down there. Bring my kid down
Area
to
51?
Oh, there's
well,
lots.
I mean, they did kind of actually confirm the aliens recently. There's some
Holy
there was
buckets,
some testimony about like
I know, yeah, and then the Defense Department's all like, "Okay, let's just come clean here and be like, we don't know what it is,"
Yeah,
I find that really interesting.
And then everyone's like, "Oh, neat. Okay. Anyway."
Yeah, right.
Oh, and I also meant to ask too. What do you teach?
I just teach English and history.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that's what my license says on it. But yeah, so you just I have to go back to what that says. 'Cause it's been a while. Yeah. History, English, mostly English. That's what
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really enjoy it. I still love teaching. It'll be fun to be back in the U.S. and teach. Yeah. which may be at an international school, actually. So I know, which is great. Yeah. It's fun now to be a teacher and to be a parent, too, because I look forward to passing that on to my child. Trying to give her a love for the humanities in an age that doesn't embrace the humanities like it did when I went to school.
Good luck.
This is my soapbox. It's official. The New Yorker came out and wrote an article called "The Death of the English Major."
Yeah.
Yeah.
This AI invasion.
Well, that and just the emphasis on post-secondary education on STEMs. Everyone wants their kids to, which rightly so. As a parent, I understand you want your kid to go to college and really get something out of it. And people have that fear, the taint of humanity won't, give you a competitive edge in life. And everyone wants their son or daughter to be a technocrat, and the humanities supposedly doesn't allow for that. So all the budgets and, the college and universities are shrunk down under the weight of the STEMs focus. So it's your job now as an English teacher to try to sell kids on how, humanities is important for STEMs. Yeah, wow. That's what it's become. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds kind of normal. I mean,
it is. No, it's that's
football
the world we
always
live in.
wins anyways.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately, yes.
And I feel like I got a lot out of my theater degree actually in the end, and so I think it's a shame that there's not as much of an emphasis on these kind of liberal arts kind of.
No, absolutely right.
things.
I mean, can there be a balance out there? I mean, should I think what the New Yorker is saying with the death of the English major is they want to even strip down core requirements. Should we make kids take, a literature class, for example? Okay, sure, they have to take art history. Yeah. Should they be given those opportunities, or should they be able to fast track through almost like a more vocational or technical experience? And while I understand that, I do think that we have to, for God's sake, keep humanities out there. I mean. Talking about humanities here, people.
Yeah, in the name.
Yeah,
You're
right, it's in the name. I know. Yeah. But I mean, even as a teacher, I mean, it is a bit underwhelming sometimes when it seems like your job gets more and more technocratic, and you spend so much time trying to, teach to the individual that you yourself tend to get a little burnt out. I think I've read less in my professional experience in the last few years. Just for read less personally than I ever had, I don't know if that's just how it is now, but that's why having some time off is great, because I really miss reading.
Oh,
yeah, just reading
and
for
biking.
joy.
Oh, yeah.
And biking. I know, it's so great to be back and just get to bike around.
Do you remember? Well, we all used to bike to Jitters.
Yes.
One day I showed up all full of blood that day, remember?
Oh, you had a major wipeout. I remember that.
I remember.
Yeah, you had a really bad.
How'd that happen? I don't even remember what.
It was like spring, and there was all the gravel, and I was like late, of course, and probably a little hungover maybe. Going super fast and take a corner all gravel and skid it across 2 lanes of traffic, and this really old retired guy came out and said, "Hey, you need to sit down." I'm like, "Why? I gotta get to work." He's like, "You got strawberries all over." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I looked down, and then I almost passed out. I was like, I'm gonna die.
Where was the accident? Where did you wipe out?
Right in front of the house.
Oh,
I was like
yeah.
just leaving my house in the morning.
Just leaving your house. So like on 8th and 19th.
Yeah, right on 11th and 9th.
Or 11th,
and,
sorry, yeah.
Not stopping at the stop sign, going as fast as I can.
Yeah, and then skidding out.
Skidding across and right in front of the bus stop. They could have.
Yeah, you had a huge.
Oh, that was a question. Yeah, how many times have you guys almost died? / how many times have you saved someone?
Oh yeah, brushes with death.
Wow.
Brushes with death. Yeah, you mean just in general, huh?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
I mean, I can't think of a single thing that I did. That I was always a very Thank you, Mom and Dad. That's probably why I'm still here today. Very cautious. Thought things through first. I didn't do things just haphazard or off the cuff or, without thinking it through. I mean, and
except
there
for the
wasn't
coffee house.
that wasn't ever life threatening, but it was a risk, but a calculated risk. But physical harm, no. I never had anything.
What about saving someone?
Same thing there.
No?
No, I'm not.
I've led a very vanilla life. Sorry.
You ever saved anybody?
No, I can't say I ever did.
Spiritually or otherwise.
Oh, well.
That's true.
That might be from that angle, possibly.
I knew it.
You saved someone, I think.
Surely, you fight a shark or something, probably.
Yeah, no, we tried to save a kid who drowned, but he died.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, that was in
Really?
Nicaragua.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
That really opened my eyes to how, well, number one, if you're in a third world country, don't expect, good emergency services. And yeah, it was in a volcanic caldera, like a deep.
Not where we went
freshwater.
swimming.
Oh yeah, that was it. That was Laguna Pollo, yeah. But it was at another resort, but same thing. And we were just sitting up watching these kids all swimming. It was a group. They had just been there for Habitat for Humanity. It was their last day in country, and they were going back to Sonoma, California. He had just graduated from high school. He was like captain of the swim team. I looked up his stuff later. He was like homecoming king, like a super popular kid. He was with a group on Habitat for Humanity. They came to celebrate the last day. They were there swimming. And I remember they're all sitting around this floating dock out in the, in the lake, the lagoon, right?
Wow.
And it's a beautiful, deep, I mean, it can go from, the shore to 100 feet in just a few meters. And it's very deep. But they were just hanging out by the swimming dock, like maybe practicing holding their breath, because I remember some kids were hanging around going underwater and coming back up, and I remember commenting like, what a nice group of kids. Like, they weren't too rowdy, they weren't doing anything crazy, right? I mean, holding your breath, I mean, we've all done that in the water. And a few minutes later someone was shouting like, help, and so we jumped in and swam around. And I think we had been looking for him for maybe 6, 7, 10 minutes, and then finally he had no body fat. He's very athletic, and so he was down probably like 10 feet underwater before we got him, and then got him up on the dock, and we got a pulse and we breathed for him. But I mean, we had to do that for like an hour before even anybody came to get him. And then by the time they did, I mean, he clinically he was alive, clinically he was alive. He had a heartbeat, but he had no brain activity.
No,
That's a sad reality. And same in the Philippines, people drown all the time, and and the emergency services are limited. So yeah.
I thought you saved someone in the riptide one time.
Well, that was Carrie, yeah. Do you know why they have all the red flag stuff in Park Point? That was like August 17th or 18th, 2003. So that was 20 years ago to the day that they created that system. And it was that day that Carrie I got her out of the water. Yeah, we had been out swimming, and I remember we had commented the summer before about how, wow, you can there wasn't such a concept of riptides, and people just said, oh, it was a wavy day, and I kept trying to swim in, and it would pull me out a little bit, and it was a little bit uncomfortable because I was always over my head, and I kind of had to swim around to get out of it. And we were out swimming. It was a beautiful wavy day like yesterday, and I was well ahead of her in the surf, way over my head, and I just saw the back of her. She was bobbing. It looked like she was having a fun time, but you can't hear anything. And I went up to just kind of playfully grab her, and she let out this blood-curdling scream, and she was just barely treading water. Like, she was over her head and had been swallowing water, and I was trying to grab her. And finally, we were waving to our friends who came out, and we got her out of the riptide. But I got her in, and we had to like roll over on her side and get water out of her, and she never was unconscious, but she was really close. Yeah. And that was the same day that a kid drowned at that first lot, right down by the tot lot, that first beach. Somebody drowned there, and the sheriff's rescue came, and one of their guys they had to pull out because they were pulled out on a riptide too. Yeah, and also up the North Shore, I don't remember where it was, but there was another incident there where I don't know if anyone lost their life, but there was a near drowning there the same day. And that's when all this discussion came on about, hey, we should probably talk about riptides and put up stuff. Yeah. Yeah. 20 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. What's your almost dying?
Almost dying. I mean, it depends on who you talk to. I mean, since it was just me and the bear, I mean, I would have said that I felt like I was about to, it's just.
The polar bear.
You and the who?
No, this is before that. It was a brown bear.
Oh, okay.
No, not that bear. The other bear.
That's Alaska. That's the other reason why I loved Alaska. I'd love living in a country where you could just find enormous animals that were,
couldn't eat you.
Yeah, could eat you. There's something awe-inspiring about that, But when I worked in Alaska Crossings, that was 2009. We did wilderness guiding for kids. We'd go out. This is the only program that would go out for like 50 days or so. I'd never been on a 50-day program, and that means we would go from Wrangell Island in the southeast. They would boat us all the way up to Telegraph Creek in Canada, in British Columbia, and then float the lower Stickeen River back. Stickeen River is like the largest undammed navigable river in North America. It's huge, right? It's like the Yukon, but it's you can actually navigate it on the lower half from Telegraph Creek. So we floated with these kids all the way down from like the Cassiar Range back across the Canadian border. And on one of those trips, it was in the summer when all the bears come down because the berries are big in the coastal areas. And before you take these kids out, it's like a 50-day program, which means you're in the bush for 50 days. You've got a cell phone, you can call for stuff. But I mean, it's just 3 people, 10 kids
For 50 days.
for 50 days. And then we get resupplied, right? It's not like we're hunting for food or anything. We get all the food we want. They bring it, they'll boat it to you or fly it into you. But I mean, we have to give the kids medications if the kid has any kind of course, they all are. So, these are behavioral issues. These are adjudicated kids. They came out of North Star lockup in Anchorage. So we had suicide cases. We had, assault cases, all this. I mean, some of the state's toughest kids. But Alaska Island Services, which is run through one of I think it was the Tlingit Corporation, they call it. Anyways, they had a great program. I mean, it was all funded through the state, and that's very rare, right, in the U.S. So it's a great program for, youth mental health services and wilderness guiding. And I thought, well, this sounds great. But when we took the kids out, you give them this big, bear aware talk, and they, see videos or whatever and how to deal with it. And so this one girl was really worked up about it. She was really scared. She hadn't really done a lot of camping. She grew up in Anchorage. And so our first day on program, we'd been out, and sure enough, on one of those islands, we saw a big old male brown bear, And so she was really upset about that. But we said, well, look, we're going over to an adjacent island. The thing's not going to come over there. Don't worry about it. And we were there towards dusk. We finally get there. We set up. We were making burritos for dinner. I remember it was so nice. We had the camp set up in the woods a little ways further. And one of the kids had to run off to use the latrine. And so she was, I mean, it's in the Alexander Archipelago. There's nothing out there, right? I mean, there's a few Forest Service, remote sites and stuff, but it's all canoeing from island to island, So we were out there, and that girl went to latrine, and she let out a blood-curdling scream. So me and Adam, one of the guys that were leading it, ran over there, and she was saying there was a big bear around that she just saw, and the latrine was about like maybe 50 yards away from where, we had set up and stuff. So we went to camp thinking, well, this thing knows there's food now because, it obviously we were cooking. And so we went up to this ridge line that our camp was adjacent to, and there was like a little bit, the ridge and then a gorge that went down. He was up on an adjacent ridge, and I remember looking at this thing, and you could just see its profile in the silhouette a little bit. And I mean, just a massive brown, big brown bear, probably 500 kilos. I don't know, big, even by the Alaska standards, a pretty big male, and he wasn't backing down. And all they give you on program is, every organization has its different thing up there, like the Forest Service, because you can carry firearms. When I did firefighting, you can, it's a firearm carrying position, so you can carry with you like a Magnum Winchester 300 mag with big Holland rounds in it, which has got stopping power, but it's like you'd have to engage a bear to, it's not like having a shotgun. It's like it's more for a distance thing. So I never was comfortable carrying those anyways, because who knows if that would ever pay off. Because most encounters with bears are within like 50 meters, right, or less. It's a surprise kind of encounter, and they don't like to be surprised. But this thing had obviously associated with food, and the program only gives you can't carry it's not a firearm position because you got kids, and we don't want the kids access to firearms. So they just give you these glorified fireworks. It's like it looks like a flare gun. It's basically a flare gun, and they put like a big whistling bottle cap flare thing on it. You can shoot, but to do it, you have to put in the primer. It's not its own. Oh no! So you got to put the primer in and then load the thing. So imagine when you're looking at this thing that's within less than 30 meters away, and it's on the other end of a ridge, and all it's got to do is come down. And it's just, and we're banging pots and yelling, and it's just sitting there like a gigantic log, and it's not moving. And then finally, you try to get the primer in there, my hand's shaking, and the primer falls out, and then I finally put it in, and shoot like 2 of those things. I had to shoot like 2 of those things at it to get it to back off. It wasn't.
Wow.
And then it finally just loped off, but they're real quiet. You'd think those things would make a lot of footfall in the woods or brush, but it's like they move pretty quiet.
I had 2 sneak up on me once.
What?
2. I had 2 sneak up.
Which brown bear or black bear?
I'm not. Well, it's this thing. I'm not sure because I was in my tent.
Where was it?
It was weirdly enough not too far away from a casino in the Apostle Islands area.
That'd be Black Bear. Yeah,
Black Bear.
for sure. Yeah, but you know what? More like fatalities in Alaska are from black bear, not brown bear encounters.
Yeah.
That surprises
Black bears
me.
are really aggressive. Yeah.
Really?
Well, and they're
In
just more
Alaska.
numerous.
In
Yeah, in
Alaska,
Alaska. I mean,
not
there's
here.
way more black bears than brown bears. I mean, they're everywhere.
Why are
hear
they?
much-
No.
You don't hear that.
Well kept
Why?
secret. Yeah.
Why?
Secret.
What they don't want you to know in Alaska.
Oh.
I mean, to me, it makes sense because I mean, look at how aggressive they are here. You know, they're pretty wily.
All the
But you had an encounter with two of them, the
yeah,
Apostle Islands.
and all they did was just eat the chips that.
Oh, sure.
It was.
But they ran you out of camp, then you had to like back up and just let it do its thing,
Well,
right?
well, Molly and I were trying to sleep, and I heard some sort of. Well, I thought it was just drunk people walking around because there was a.
Which bears often mimic
Well,
they mimic drunk
There,
people.
there was an outhouse not too
They're
far
always
away from us, and there
snacky
were
and
already drunk people making a bunch of noise. We were trying to sleep, and so I thought, oh, they're probably just. But then I heard kind of like a. And I was like- but this is also my first time going camping. It's only a couple of years ago.
Oh no.
And so I kind of thought, oh, well, this must just happen when you go camping. That just bears are outside your tent, and it's just something.
Normal.
Yeah. So then I discovered, I mentioned it the next morning, that that's not normal.
Yeah.
But I mean, luckily nothing happened. They ate the chips, walked away,
Yeah, sure.
found
Wow.
something else
Well,
to
you
do.
know, I
yeah.
mean, to be fair, if they get what they want, they'll be just fine.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I-
and
and he
And
did.
you don't challenge them, they'll probably just go away.
I know we're getting redundant with bears, but what about the polar bear story?
Oh yeah, we gotta hear about
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yes.
sure. Well, Gamble is 200 air miles from Nome. So if you're in Nome and you pretty much draw a straight line, you go to the international date line with Russia. Gamble's almost right there. Gamble's like within a few kilometers of the international date line. So it's just a big island that sits right out in the Bering Sea,
Okay.
and it's at the very southern limit of the polar bear, of the Chukchi migration. There's a polar bear group that migrates back and forth between like the Russian Far East and then the U.S. side, like up by the Seward Peninsula, which would be like Wales. There's a little community there, and then there's Gamble, us a little further out. The Diomedes also. That same pack of bears just rows back and forth because it's such a short distance on the pack ice, right? In the summertime, I mean, you wouldn't see them because there's no pack ice. But as soon as October, November, and the pack ice comes in, it starts to close in with the island. Those bears will come in on the island, and as every good Inuit community knows up there, they always put the dump as like on the windward side to get the bears on there. It's as a kind of a distraction. Some people argue, well, they're baiting bears so they can shoot them. That may be either way. When you're living in a remote community of a few hundred people, and there's a migrating pack of polar bears, it probably is not bad practice to keep your dump kind of on the windward side, so they'll just hang out there. The problem is it's also one of like just 11 federally recognized whaling communities that actually they butcher the whales on site in the village.
Oh, wow.
So imagine what happens in April when they catch these 40, 50-ton whales and then the carcass sits there in the community. I mean, that's a giant polar bear magnet. So they just come in and feast on those things too.
Wow.
But this was so this was around April. They had just gotten a juvenile bowhead whale, which is like, it was small. It was like 20 tons or something.
Yeah,
This was small.
tiny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tiny. Right, so they butchered that, and that was sitting right up because the old teachers' housing was the old Bureau of Indian Affairs school, which sits on the Northwest Cape, which faces the Far East. So on a clear day, you can see the Anadyr Peninsula, and that's kind of their little route, on the fast ice. So in April, when the ice is broken up, they can still migrate some of those ice flows if they smell those carcasses. So there's a big carcass sitting, right outside there, beyond the dump. And then they'll usually come in on the windward side, so they'll go through the dump first and then try to get over to the carcass, which is in the village itself. And whenever they don't have garbage services there. You got to bring your own garbage to the dump. So people would always tell you, well, it's April, it's whaling season, it's likely there could be some bears popping around. Just keep your eyes open, whatever. And I remember taking the garbage out and. Yeah, I was within like 10 meters of the dump. You go over a little rise and it flattens out almost onto the sea. Like they put these dumps on a sand spit, so it's all going into the sea anyways. But
Sure.
I mean, batteries, seal flippers, everything. It all goes right in. Yeah, and
Wow.
and
Seal flippers. What's a seal flipper?
The flipper and a seal.
the flipper and a seal.
Oh, just the part you can't eat them.
Or
Yeah, I guess
whatever noise
not.
they
Yeah,
make.
yeah. They'll
That was a
probably.
bad imitation.
Yeah, that's all right. You got the point across.
That was okay. You know, that was an okay imitation.
Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, there was a small, like a juvenile polar bear there, and that thing had been standing on its hind legs. I you know, because you see something out there, and you're like, well, it's all white on the horizon, and bears are pretty white, but they're also kind of yellowish. So I was like, no, that's a polar bear, and he's standing on his feet, like on his hind legs, because he was just sniffing. I don't know what he was smelling, if it was the garbage or me, who knows, you know. But anyways, it hadn't been on its feet more than a few seconds, and it spun. It did the weirdest. I'm like, what is this thing doing? It was before I heard the rifle shot. It had hit the thing and it had spun. They'd shot it, and so it had like spun around on its feet and then fell over. And then they plugged it a few more times. I mean, these guys shot this thing within like, I don't know, I was like maybe 20 meters, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
A little too close for comfort.
To me, it just felt like, they were baiting these things, you know. But hey, who am I to say?
You just have to explain that in customs.
Yeah, which I did, because that same bear, their tradition is if someone, you know, is around when the bear shot, they get part of the take too. So they gave me like the hind flanks and the ribs, and they were
my God.
fantastic. And I had all this meat, and I had prepared it carefully. I put it in a cooler, made it all the way back to Juneau with my friends. We had a meal there of, you know, polar bear and whale, and I packaged all this stuff up, had it in a little Coleman cooler in my car, had it refrigerated, drove all the way back through Canada with this thing, no problems at all. And then I get through I come through the U.S. Customs in International Falls. And I was dumb enough to go through customs with like a polar bear, like claw thing that was. That guy took one look at that and he's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Well, it's a finished piece. It's a pull over." They just ripped the car apart, found all that meat in there, and confiscated it. They took it all.
Sad.
They're like, "What's this stuff?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just some deer meat I got."
Yeah. Some hamburger.
Yeah, it's hamburger. I got it from Costco.
Don't worry about it.
No, they confiscated it.
Oh,
Man.
great story.
That was a bummer.
Well,
I'm pushed for time.
yeah, and I also I have to pee. So we're
Okay,
gonna
This
wrap
has
it
been
up.
a wild blast.
It has.
I don't know
Blast from the
how this
past.
is going to turn
Literally.
out, but
That would be great.
Oh, that was
it was-
really fun.
the reason,
so.
one of the main reasons I am doing what I'm doing now, and the original crew, some of the best times doing the first round of coffee, and it was so fun to.
It was fun. It was a
Have
good
you guys
ride.
come in?
It was a great ride.
To get
Sure
corn
was.
in the country is hard enough.
Yeah, literally. This is true.
It's great. Oh, it's so much fun to be here with you guys, and what a nice
Ditto.
surprise, and to have
Yeah.
everybody here. It's just really great.
Maybe
sure.
in 10 years we'll do another one. Huh?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll do
Mark
it.
it on my calendar.
Yay. Oh, that was really a joy. Thanks for.
And the computer didn't crash.
Yay.